How you doing? I wanted to show you two friends of mine. I don't think you know them. This is Catalion and his friend Bumblebee. Look at Bumblebee. Catalion is very big. Bumblebee is very small. Bumblebee is yellow and black and has wings. And Catalion is tan and orange color, and he roars. And yet, even though they're different, they're still friends. They're a family of friends. As a matter of fact, they live in Dillon, in that great big chest with all the puppets. Well, today I wanted to tell you a story about two friends. It reminds me of you folks. So does Catalion, family of friends. Amos and Boris. And it's by William Steig. And guess what? It's about friends. So let's find out, okay? Amos the mouse lived by the ocean. Oh, he loved the ocean. He loved the smell of the sea air. He loved to hear the surf sound, the bursting breakers, the backwashes with rolling pebbles. Just like Sister Pat, this is what I like too. He loved to go down to the ocean every day. He thought a lot about the ocean, and he wondered about the faraway places on the other side of the water. One day, he started to build a boat on the beach. He worked on it nighttime, and he worked on it in the daytime. He was always thinking about his boat. When the boat was finished, he loaded it with cheese and biscuits and acorns and honey and wheat germ, 2 barrels of fresh water, a compass, a sextant, a telescope, a saw, a hammer, nails, and some wood in case repairs would be necessary, a needle and thread for mending the torn sails, and various other necessities such as bandages and iodine, and, of course, a yo-yo and playing cards. Here's when he was building it. He thought of all of the things that he would need for his journey. On the 6th of September, with a very calm sea, he waited till the high tide had almost reached his boat, and then, using his most savage strength, he just managed to push that boat into the water, climb on board, and set sail. The Rodent, for that was the boat's name, proved to be very well made and very well suited to the sea. And Amos, after one miserable day of seasickness, proved to be a natural sailor, very well suited to the ship. He was enjoying his trip immensely. It was beautiful weather. Day and night he moved up and down and up on the waves as big as mountains. And he was full of wonder, full of enterprise, and full of life. Look at how high those waves were. Ooh, I would be afraid of that, let me tell you. One night, in a phosphorescent sea, he marveled at the sight of some whales spouting luminous water, and later, lying on the deck of his boat, gazing at the immense starry sky, the tiny mouse Amos, a little speck in the vast sea, turned over, and fell overboard. He rolled right off. There he is here on the boat. And here are the whales. He rolled right off into the sea. Help! He squeaked as he desperately tried to get to the rodent. But it evaded his grasp and went barreling along full of sail. And he never saw the ship again. Oh, goodness. Where was he? Where? In the middle of an immense ocean 1,000 miles from the nearest shore, with no one else in sight as far as the eye could see. Oh no, not even a piece of driftwood to hold on to. Oh, should I try to swim home? Amos wondered. Or should I just try to stay afloat? He might swim a mile, but never 1,000. He decided just to keep afloat, treading water and hoping that something, who knows what, would turn up and save him. But what if a shark or a big fish or a horse mackerel showed up. Oh, how could he protect himself? He did not know. There he is. Poor Amos, all alone in the sea. I'm getting very nervous. I really am. I can't turn the page. Morning came, as it always does, and he was getting terribly tired. He was very small and very cold and very wet and a very worried little mouse. There was still nothing in sight but the empty sea. Then, as if weren't things bad enough, it started to rain. At last the rain stopped, and noonday sun gave him a bit of cheer and warmth in his vast loneliness. But his strength was giving out. He began to wonder what it would be like to drown. Would it take very long? Would it feel awful? Oh, were there other mice in heaven? As he was asking himself these dreadful questions, a huge head burst through the surface of the water and loomed up over him. It was a whale. "What sort of fish are you?" the whale asked. "You must be one of a kind." "Well, I'm not a fish," said Amos. "I'm a mouse, which is a mammal, the highest form of life, and I live on land." "Holy clam and cuttlefish," said the whale. "I'm a mammal myself, though I live in the sea. You can call me Boris," he said. There's the rain. Oh, look how big Boris is. Kind of like Cataline and Bumblebee. Amos introduced himself and told Boris how he came to be in the middle of the ocean. The whale said that he would be happy to take Amos to the Ivory Coast of Africa, where he happened to be headed anyway, to attend a meeting of whales from all the 7 seas. He wanted only to get back home, Amos did, and he hoped the whale wouldn't mind going out of his way and taking him there. "Not only would I not mind," said Boris, "I would consider it a privilege. What other whale in all of the world has had the chance to get to know such a strange creature as you? Please climb on board." And Amos got onto Boris's back. "Are you sure you're a mammal?" Amos asked. "You smell more like a fish." Then Boris the whale went swimming along with Amos the mouse on his back. That was so nice of him to give him a ride, don't you think? What a relief to be safe again. Amos lay down in the sun, being worn to a frazzle, and was soon asleep on the whale's back. Then all of a sudden he was in the water again, wide awake, splashing about. Boris had forgotten to tell his passenger on his back that he had to go down into the ocean and come back up again. That's called sounding. When he realized his mistake, he surfaced so quickly that Amos was sent summersailing, tail over whiskers, high into the air, hitting the water. Oh, it hurt him. Crazy with rage, Amos started screaming at Boris, forgetting that the whale had saved his life. Then he climbed back onto Boris's back. From then on, whenever Boris wanted to sound, he warned Amos in advance and got his okay. And whenever he sounded, Amos just went for a little swim, like this. And then Boris would pick him up again. Swimming along, sometimes at great speed, sometimes slowly and leisurely, sometimes resting and exchanging ideas, sometimes stopping to sleep. It took them a week to reach Amos's home. During that time, they developed a deep admiration for one another. Boris admired the delicacy, the quivering daintiness, the light touch, and the small voice, the gem-like radiance of the mouse. And Amos admired the bulk, the grandeur, the power, the purpose, the rich voice, and the abounding friendliness of the whale. They became the closest possible friends. They told each other about their lives and their ambitions. They shared their deepest secrets with one another. The whale was very curious about life on land and was sorry that he could never experience it. Amos was fascinated by the whale's accounts of what went on deep under the sea. Amos sometimes enjoyed running up and down the whale's back for exercise. When he was hungry, he ate plankton. The only thing he missed was fresh, unsalty water. Look at that exercise. No bicycles there, right? The time came to say goodbye. They were at the shore. "I wish we could be friends forever," said Boris. "We will be friends forever, even though we can't be together. You must live on the land, and I must live in the sea. But I'll never forget you. And you can be sure I will never forget you," said Amos. "I will always be grateful to you for saving my life, and I want you to remember that if you ever need my help, I'd be more than glad to give it." How could he ever possibly help Boris? Amos didn't know, but he would be willing. The whale couldn't take Amos all the way to the land. They said their last goodbye, and Amos dived off Boris's back and swam back to the sand. From the top of a cliff, he watched Boris spout twice and disappear. Boris laughed to himself. "How can a little mouse ever help me? Little as he is, and all heart. I love him, and I will miss him terribly." Boris went to the conference off the Ivory Coast of Africa, and then went back for a life of whaling about, while Amos returned to his life of mousing about. And they both were very happy. But that's not the end of this story. Many years after the incidents just described, when Amos was no longer a very young mouse, and when Boris was no longer a very young whale, there occurred one of the worst storms of the century, Hurricane Yetta. And it just so happened that Boris the whale was flung ashore by a tidal wave and stranded on the very shore where Amos happened to make his home. Look at poor Boris. It was a terrible hurricane. To turn the page. It also just so happened that when the storm had cleared up and Boris was lying high and dry on the sand, losing his moisture in the hot sun and needing desperately to get back into the water, when Amos came down to the beach to see how much damage the hurricane had done. Of course, Boris and Amos recognized each other right away. Well, I don't have to tell you how these old friends felt at meeting again in such a desperate situation. Amos rushed toward Boris. Boris could only look at Amos. "Amos, help me," said the mountain of a whale to the little mouse. I think I'll die if I don't get back into the water soon." Amos gazed at Boris. "Oh no, what can I do?" He realized he had to do something very fast, and he had to think very fast about what he was going to do. Suddenly he was gone. "Oh, I'm afraid he won't be able to help me," Boris said to himself. "Much as he wants to do something, how can he do it? He's such a little fellow." Look, he even tried pushing him, but he couldn't do it. Just as Amos had once felt all alone in the middle of the ocean, Boris felt now lying alone on the shore. He was sure he would die, and he was preparing to die, when Amos came rushing back. You know what he had? 2 great big elephants. Can you guess what the elephants are going to do? I bet you can. Without wasting time, these 2 good-hearted elephants got to pushing with all their might at Boris's huge body until it began turning over, breaded with sand, and rolling down toward the sea. Amos was standing on the head of one of the elephants, yelling instructions, but no one could hurt him because he was so small and his voice was so small. In a few minutes, Boris was already in the water with waves washing over him, and he was feeling the wonderful wetness of the sea. You have to be out in the sea to really know what it's like. but you'd have to be living in it, he thought. That's if you're a whale. Soon he began to wiggle and wiggle, deeper and deeper into the ocean. You can almost see the smile on his face, can't you? He looked back at Amos on the elephant's head. Tears were rolling down the great whale's cheeks. The tiny mouse had tears in his eyes, too. "Goodbye, dear friend," squeaked Amos. "Goodbye, dear friend," said Boris, and he disappeared into the waves. They knew they might never meet each other again, but they knew that they would be friends forever. Just like Bumblebee and Catalion and you folks and all of your friends at Dillon with Miss Vicky and Sister Pat and Susan and Danielle and Catherine. We hope you remember us, and we hope you come to visit us. You can call us or talk to us anytime because we love you. Bye. Be good.